So I want to get started with the Muslim student that it was banned from commencement at the University of Southern California. This started actually the other day. Shout out to Philip Lewis for shouting this out. USC announced that valedictorian Asna Tabassum's commencement speech has been canceled, stating it was necessary to maintain the safety of our campus and our students. I'm surprised that my own university abandoned me. That was the statement from Asna there. So I think we know what's going on here, folks. Apparently, they don't appear that or feel that her presence at commencement as the valedictorian would be safe for certain people. I bet you can guess why. Asna actually was on CNN to discuss this. I'm actually surprised that they brought her on CNN. This is very disappointing. I have tried to warn people where this was headed with the cancel culture, with Zionism, and with anti-Zionism. First, it started with the press, where they were coming after journalists. They're coming after, different channels, different shows, etc., targeting accounts on Twitter, targeting accounts on TikTok. And then it was only a matter of time before they would come after the universities. So the first university I saw them come after was Harvard University. They were coming after students there, telling these students that they should leave Harvard University, telling President Claudine Gay that she should step down and resign as president of Harvard University. But I told you that Harvard would not be the end of this, that this was going to spread to other universities. Columbia University has had several students protest in reference to Israel's war in Gaza. And now you can see that they are continuing to move on with this further cancellation for people who are supporting the Palestinian people by banning their own valedictorian, who is also Muslim. Let's get into this.
Joining me now is Asna Tabassum, University of Southern California valedictorian. Asna, thank you very much for joining us. My understanding is that this week you met with university officials to address security concerns. What happened in that meeting? Did they tell you about any specific threats?
No, actually, they did not tell me about any specific threats, and my request to ask for the details of such threats were denied. And so it leads me to consider whether the decision to revoke my speech was made on the basis of safety alone.
So you just heard her speak. Does she sound like someone that you should be afraid of? Are you in fear for your life of this young woman?
Do you have a sense of whether there was a concern for your safety or perhaps the safety of other students?
The safety, I think, is a priority for all students, including myself. And so it was made unclear to me because I received no details about what specifically the security threats were directed to.
So the university has said that this is not a free speech issue. Do you view it that way?
I think there's a nuance here. I think, I expressed an opinion through a link that I had on my Instagram. The hate and the vitriol that was unleashed towards me after, I think, was part of the reason that the university caved in. And so when it comes to being a free speech issue, sure, maybe my valedictory speech is a privilege, and it's a privilege I do not take lightly, and other students and evidently people around the world do not take lightly. But at the end of the day, my views, the views that I have expressed and the views that USC has instilled within me as well, were stifled and were subject to hate.
You just brought up.
Pause here for a second. So it was a post that she made on Instagram. And this is another thing I warned people about, that they are monitoring pro-Palestinian social media accounts, whether it's X. Of course, Facebook has been monitoring people for years, and TikTok as well, and also Instagram. So you have to remember Facebook owns Instagram, right? So they're monitoring these accounts. We don't really have a right to privacy in this country. We don't really have as much free speech as we say that we do, or we think that we do. What a mess.
A link that was posted through your social media page. I do want to ask you about that, since you did bring it up. One of the items in this post calls for the complete abolishment of Israel. Is that a position that you endorse?
If you're asking me if I stand for human rights, if you're asking me if I stand for equality and unequivocal and unconditional right to life for all people, including Palestinians, then I'm not apologetic. I believe in what I believe, and it is because of the people around me that I've met at USC, the classes that I've taken, the professors that I have learned from, that have led me to look at the world in this way. And you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, human rights is controversial.
The reason I'm...
Pause for a second. First of all, yes, she did that, Miguel. That was a perfect answer. That was a perfect answer because, yes, the problem here is that the Palestinian people are not even seen as people by the state of Israel. They've called them animals. They're not even seen as human beings. They don't respect them. They don't feel that they should have the same rights. There is no idea of equality when you're looking at the state of Israel and how they view the Palestinian people. They don't see that. They don't feel the same. And that in itself is a serious problem. And she shouldn't even have to come on to CNN and explain that to people, and particularly to explain that to Abby, who is a Black woman. She shouldn't even have to explain this to you, Abby. But again, Abby is reading a script that is handed to her by the producers of that show.
Asking is because that's what the link said. It called for the complete abolishment of Israel. Abolishment of Israel was in the actual language. Is that something that you endorse?
So the abolishment of the state of Israel, I'd like to clarify, is the abolishment of an apartheid system. It inherently is a system that subjugates Palestinians as dehumanized, and it subjugates Palestinian life as not worth the same as other human life. So when the link says...
So is that a yes then?
See, you notice that she had to interrupt her there because of what she said. She told the truth about the state of Israel, the Israeli government, and how they view the Palestinian people. So, you know, she had to interrupt her there because this is a trap set up by Abby Phillips, not Abby Martin. This is a trap set up here by Abby Phillips. What Abby Phillips is trying to do is she is trying to get Asna to admit that by saying that you're calling for the eradication of the state of Israel, she's trying to get her to admit that she's calling for the eradication of Jewish people. That's what she's trying to do. So this is one of those traps that journalists or commentators will actually set up for the person that they're interviewing. And that's why I said the response that Asna gave was a perfect response, that you care about the humanitarian rights and the suffering of all people, that all people should be respected and treated as equals.
I think a yes or a no would be an injustice to the issue. And I think that any sort of ideological debate or any sort of academic discourse is worth clarification and worth discussion. You're in a university environment, and as a Muslim student, your experience is important and it matters. And as you said, you want the university to protect you. But I wonder about your Jewish classmates. Some of them have said that your selection to speak at their graduation has turned that event into an unwelcome and intolerant environment for Jewish students. What do you say to them?
She was selected because she met the requirements. Do you know how difficult it is to become the valedictorian? You're not just, handpicked. Like, you have to meet certain requirements. They're saying that she is the best and brightest student of her class. That is why she was selected as the valedictorian. So she met the requirements. So there's that. But once again, this is another example of these universities and companies doing this as well, as these universities trying to paint Jewish people as the victim and nobody else. So what we really have is like this oppression Olympics here. No one else oppression is important right now?
I believe that every Jewish student at commencement deserves to be represented just as every other student at commencement. The position of having a valedictorian honor is supposed to be a unifying honor. And I believe that my commitment to human rights and my commitment to equal treatment should not be signified as, or not be manipulated into, an expression of disunity. I think what I say to my Jewish classmates is that your feelings are heard, and I think that you're entitled to your own positions on an ideological or on the basis of academic discourse. But when it comes to human rights, and when it comes to the unequivocal and unconditional right to life, then I think that all USC students, because I have faith in my university that instilled these values in us, I believe that all USC students believe in that.
Did you plan in your speech to talk about Israel and its actions? And if you had the opportunity to give it, what would you have said?
So here we go in reference to what she would have said. Again, Abby is not interested in what she actually would have said. It's not like Abby is asking this question because she's curious. Oh, I wonder what your speech would have been. Abby doesn't care about the speech. This is another trap that is set up by Abby to try to see if there's something she would have said in this speech that would basically, warrant the university removing her as the valedictorian. What you got to understand is Abby here and CNN, they're not on the side of the students. They're not on the side of the person who was removed. They are here to speak for the side of the University of Southern California, which is a hell of a damn good school, by the way. The fact that she got into USC in itself is tremendous. You have to understand that is one of the top schools in the country. So Abby and CNN, the commentator and the network, is there to protect the institution that is in place, and that is the university. They are not there to protect her. Once you go into these interviews, understanding that and realizing that they are always there to protect the institutions that are in place, the easier it will be for you to see what they are actually doing.
That's a great question. So I actually had not started working on my speech at all. If I were to be able to give a valedictory speech, a message of hope. When it comes to me saying a speech, again, me taking a valedictory speech that is supposed to be unifying, I would definitely encourage and I would challenge and I would implore my peers to reconsider and to consider the ways in which their education can allow them and offer them the responsibility to look at matters of the world and take them into their own lens, make their own decisions, and make their own I want to say, not be told what to believe, and then use those conceptions to make a change for the greater good.
Asna Tabassum, thank you very much for joining us, and I should say congratulations to you on being the valedictorian.
She shouldn't even have to go through this right now. She should be concentrating on, graduating from college and her valedictorian speech, but look at what she's having to face right now. This could be the first face of many. There could be other students that this happens to as well. And what does this mean in reference to free speech in the collegiate system currently in this country? Just the other day, Columbia University, the president of this university, being questioned by Congress whether or not she believes that these phrases are anti-Semitic. Listen to what she says. You see, they're already, I told you, Harvard and Claudine Gay was just the beginning. It was not just about whether or not she committed plagiarism. Okay, we got to understand Bill Ackman's daughter was a student at Harvard University. You also have to understand his wife was also accused of plagiarism. That was not what this was about. This was about centering Jewish students at these universities above everyone else. That is what they were really fighting for. And so you'll see from the president of Columbia University, listen to what she has to say when she is questioned. Watch how she just caves.
Mobs shouting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, or long live the infantada. Are those anti-Semitic comments?
When I hear those terms, I find them very upsetting. And I have heard...
That's a great answer to a question I didn't ask, so let me repeat the question. When mobs or people are shouting from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, or long live the infantada, are those anti-Semitic statements? Yes or no? It's not how you feel, it's...
I hear them as such. Some people don't. We have sent
a clear message. So are mobs...
Okay. So that was the president of Columbia University. So you see, they got to her too. She went ahead and caved. But you have to understand, again, those presidents of those universities, once again, they are not there to protect the students who are the customers of the university. They're not there to protect the students. They are there to protect the institution in place. And that is the university. And that's how they keep their jobs. Once you push back against the institution, they want to let you go. I know firsthand experience, having worked in higher ed for over 10 years, which is why I do not work in higher ed anymore. I have firsthand experience with this. A lot of people think that these universities are like this lefty progressive haven, right? But when it comes down to business, which these universities have become, they are a business. They are very much conservative. And that's what people have to understand. Even so much that Medea Benjamin questioned the president of Columbia University, and watch her walk away. Watch this.
Any word for the Jewish students that weren't allowed to hear a hearing about anti-Semitism? Any word for the students that survived a terrorist attack using chemical weapons on your campus? Do you have any word for the survivors of a terrorist attack on your campus?
How does it feel to be in a room that did not allow for Palestinian Solidarity students to be here? This was a public hearing, and you did not allow for the public to come in? Shame on you. Being pro-Palestinian is not anti-Semitic.
We're outside the office here of the chairwoman of the Committee on Education that was hosting the hearing today with the Columbia University president. And I was here at 8 o'clock this morning. There were students online. They were the first students on the line. They were not allowed inside.
The thing, they let in Jewish students who are pro-Israel through a back door, but not the pro-Palestinian Jewish students. So I talked to some of them, and the message they seem to have gotten that was sent from the committee is that the committee feels that there's a right and wrong kind of Jew, and those that are left out in the hallway are the wrong kind of Jewish students.
Virginia, given that there's an active case against Israel for genocide in the International Court of Justice, do you think it's a good idea to be wearing a pin supporting that country?
Any word for the...
When you see these university presidents, what you have to understand is, once again, just like our politicians are bought and paid for, so are the presidents of these universities. Who are the donors? Who's donating money to Columbia University? A lot of billionaires. Who's donating money to Harvard? A lot of billionaires and Harvard alum. So the similarities that you see within the university system, when you compare it to electoral politics and the political system that we have in this country, they're very similar. Instead of paying attention to what their customers want, they pay attention to what the donors want. And this is another reason why we have to get money out of the university system. We have to remove the donor class from the university system, period. And there's a lot of them that are donating to these universities that you may not be aware of. Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, Michael Bloomberg, a lot of these people donating this money. And the moment that you do not go with the narrative that they want you to pursue, the moment that you do not move in the way that they want you to move, they will threaten not to donate money to the school again. And people need to start raising their hands and asking questions. Where is all that money that are going to these universities actually going? Because I can tell you from firsthand experience, it's not going in the places that you think that it would go. Some of these deans are making six figures. Some of the presidents at these universities are making over $1 million, $2 million a year. When I worked at Boston University, the president of BU was making over $2 million a year. He was making more than the president of Harvard. So people need to start pushing back on this. Get this money out of the university system, get corporate money out of electoral politics, and then we can start to see some serious changes in this country. But as long as the universities like Columbia and Harvard, UPenn, Stanford, Yale, it's usually the elite institutions, as long as they are controlled by the donor class, nothing is going to change in reference to the customer base. And the customer base at the university is the students. The customer base in electoral politics is us, the American people. And that's why our needs aren't met through electoralism. And that's why the student needs aren't met in the university system. We need a lot of changes to happen in this country, but one of the first ones that you can point to is money. Let's go to some of the comments here. Rondo says, because I know she's an intelligent young lady, so of course they are absolutely terrified of her. Absolutely. Lorez says the whole system is rotten. Sebastian, the president at my last university makes over six figures while students like me can't afford a semester's tuition. And you're 100% correct. That's where a lot of this money is going, right? And if that means they got to throw a student under the bus, or they have to remove a student like Asna as the valedictorian to basically please the donor class, because I'm pretty sure that's where the call came from. The call usually comes from the donor class, not the university. These things have got to change. A lot of that money is going to those deans and the presidents of the university. And if you've gone to a sports school, like I went to a sports school, a lot of that money is going to the coaches. You have college football coaches that are making over $1 million a year. You got to look at where all this money is going. Sebastian says, oh, excuse me, Tom says, state funded, this would never happen. Old School says the Ivy League schools are an elite criminal training ground. Yes. And Credit is Born said universities are economic rent extraction schemes. 100%. I wish her the best of luck. I really do. But we got to start pushing back on these universities. NH Libra says, when my son went to NYU 10 years ago, it was $40,000 per year. It is worse now. Even the University of Massachusetts, which is a public school system, it's a public university. It's ridiculously overpriced now for public school. Ridiculous.